Lisa never imagined that knocking on the wrong door in the middle of a storm would change her life forever. Inside that silent mansion, a mysterious billionaire mistook her for someone else. And she didn't correct him. One kiss, one night, one mistake that turned into an obsession. He couldn't forget her. She couldn't stop wanting to relive that moment. But when the truth comes out, will desire survive reality? The rain fell like glass blades on the Seattle asphalt, each drop exploding into tiny water stars that reflected the orange glow of the streetlights. Lisa Morgan, 30 years old, with a heart shattered into 1,000 pieces, gripped the steering wheel so tightly her fingers turned white. The smell of wet leather from the car seat mixed with the citrus perfume she wore, the same one David, her ex-fiancé, used to say he loved. Now that scent only burned her throat with the bitter memory of betrayal. 3 days. Just 3 days since she'd found David in bed with his best friend's sister. 3 days since the perfect world she'd built collapsed like a house of cards. 3 days without sleeping right, without eating, without feeling anything but a suffocating emptiness in her chest. "Lisa, please. You need to get out of the house." Rachel's voice, her only true friend, had sounded desperate over the phone. "Just a quick delivery. Take this sketchbook to a client. Address 2247 Bellevue Ridge Mansion. It's on your way home, please. I really need this money." Lisa agreed, not because she wanted to help, but because staying still in the empty apartment where every corner screamed David's name was worse than facing the storm. Now lost in an upscale part of town where massive mansions hid behind high walls and perfectly manicured gardens, Lisa felt her phone's GPS freeze every few seconds. The screen flickered. House numbers were invisible under the torrential rain, and the feeling of being completely alone swallowed her alive. 2,247, or was it 2,274, she muttered, her lips trembling from cold and anxiety. Then she saw it, an imposing mansion, modern, with huge tinted glass windows and architecture that seemed to defy gravity. The gate was slightly open, unusual for this type of property. Lisa parked, grabbed the sketchbook wrapped in brown paper, and ran to the main door, the rain soaking her gray wool coat in seconds. She knocked once, twice, nothing. She turned the handle. The door opened with a soft groan, as if inviting her inside. The warm perfumed air, sandalwood, leather, and something slightly woody immediately enveloped her. It was like stepping into another world. A world where pain didn't exist. "Hello?" Her voice echoed through the silent hall, adorned with modern art pieces and a crystal chandelier that seemed to float from the ceiling. No answer. Lisa took a few more steps. Her wet shoes left footprints on the dark, polished marble. The sound of rain outside became muffled, replaced by a thick, almost tangible silence. She should leave. She should leave the sketchbook there and run out. But something, an invisible force, a dangerous curiosity pulled her deeper inside. That's when she heard it. Footsteps. Firm, calculated. Lisa turned, and her heart stopped. A man emerged from the shadows like darkness taking form. Tall, over 6 feet, broad shoulders covered by a black linen shirt, sleeves rolled up, revealing muscular forearms, dark hair slightly tousled, jaw marked by 2 days' worth of stubble, and eyes, God, those eyes gray like storm clouds. Intense, penetrating, as if they could pierce through her soul and read every secret she hid. "You're late." His voice was husky, velvety, carrying a natural authority that made the air vibrate. Lisa opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. He looked at her as if devouring her with his eyes, as if he already knew her, as if he'd been waiting for her. "Jade, right?" He took a step forward. His scent, musk, cedar, and something wild invaded Lisa's senses. "The agency said you were different." They weren't lying. Jade. Agency. Confusion exploded in Lisa's mind, but before she could process anything, he continued, "Take off your coat. You're soaking wet." It wasn't a request. It was a command, gentle but firm. Lisa hesitated. She should explain. She should say there was a mistake, that she wasn't Jade, that she was just delivering a sketchbook. But something happened, something she didn't expect. When his eyes met hers again, that hungry look almost desperate, as if he needed her to breathe, Lisa felt it for the first time in 3 days. For the first time since the betrayal, she felt desire, heat, life pulsing through her veins. He saw her, really saw her, not as the betrayed bride, not as the broken woman, but as a desirable woman, powerful, alive. And in that moment of insanity, Lisa made the craziest decision of her life. She let the coat fall to the floor, water dripping from the thick fabric. Her eyes never left his. "Sorry I'm late," she murmured, her voice husky, almost unrecognizable. A dangerous smile, half amused, half predatory, curved his lips. "Come here." He extended his hand. Lisa looked at that hand, strong, secure, a bridge between who she was and who she could become. And then, defying all logic, all reason, she placed her hand in his. The electricity was instant, as if 1,000 sparks traveled across her skin. He squeezed her fingers firmly, not hurting, but asserting presence, and pulled her close. "You're trembling," he observed, his eyes examining every inch of her face. "Cold or fear?" "Both," Lisa admitted, her breath failing. "You don't need to be afraid of me." He raised his free hand and, with surprising gentleness, brushed a strand of wet hair from her face. His fingers grazed her cheek, leaving a trail of fire on her cold skin. "Here, you're safe." But Lisa knew it was a lie. She wasn't safe, not from this man, not from this desire consuming her, and definitely not from the truth she was hiding. He guided her down the hallway, his hand still holding hers. And Lisa realized she'd entered a dangerous game, a game where the rules were unknown and the price could be devastating. But for the first time in days, she didn't care. Because maybe, just maybe, this mistake was exactly what she needed to start feeling alive again. The silence inside the mansion was almost deafening. Each step Lisa took echoed through the dark, wood-paneled hallway, a rhythmic sound that mixed with the racing beats of her own heart. Luke's hand, she still didn't know his name, but the strength of those fingers intertwined with hers had already etched his presence into her memory, was warm, firm, an anchor amid the chaos of emotions consuming her. They stopped in a spacious room. Enormous windows revealed the storm outside, lightning tearing through the black sky like veins of liquid silver. The flickering light illuminated minimalist furniture. A black leather sofa, a white marble coffee table, bookshelves filled with books that seemed never to have been touched. But what really dominated the space was the lit fireplace, whose flames danced and crackled, casting golden shadows across the walls. The smell of wood smoke mixed with his scent, intense, masculine, addictive. Lisa felt the heat from the fireplace caress her wet skin, but it was the heat of his gaze that truly burned her. Luke released her and walked to a bar built into the wall. His broad back moved with feline grace as he grabbed a bottle of whiskey and 2 crystal glasses. Lisa watched every movement, the way the muscles in his shoulders contracted under his shirt, the way he tilted his head slightly, as if thinking about something he wasn't saying. "Do you drink?" he asked without turning around, his deep voice reverberating through the space. "Yes." Lisa barely recognized her own voice, low, husky, loaded with a need she didn't know existed. He poured 2 generous servings and returned, extending a glass to her. Their fingers brushed in the exchange, and Lisa felt a shiver run down her spine. She brought the glass to her lips. The amber liquid burned her throat, but it was a welcome fire, something that made her feel real, present, alive. Luke drank without taking his eyes off her, and then slowly he placed his glass on the table. The sound of glass against marble was like a bell announcing what was to come. "You're not what I expected," he said, taking a step toward her. Lisa swallowed hard. "What did you expect?" He stopped just inches from her, so close she could feel the heat radiating from his body, the smell of whiskey on his breath, the electric tension pulsing between them. Someone more calculating, colder. His gray eyes examined her as if he could decipher her deepest secrets. "But you have fire, pain, something still burning inside." His words were like arrows hitting their mark. Lisa felt her armor fragile as it was begin to crack. "You don't know me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "No." He raised his hand and, with torturous slowness, ran his thumb across her lower lip. The touch was soft but devastating. "But I want to. Every inch. Every secret." Lisa's heart exploded in her chest. She should leave. She should tell the truth. She should run from this house before it was too late. But then he moved closer, so close their breaths mingled, so close she could see the tiny, almost invisible scars on his jaw, the hungry gleam in his stormy eyes. "You're late," he repeated, his voice now a low growl, almost animalistic. "And I don't like to wait." Before Lisa could respond, before she could think, he kissed her and the world exploded. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It wasn't tender. It was pure hunger, raw need. His lips captured hers with an intensity that completely undid her. Lisa gasped, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss, his tongue sliding against hers in a wild and desperate dance. His hands found her waist, pulling her forcefully against his body. Lisa felt every hard muscle pressed against her, his chest rising and falling in heavy breaths. She gripped his shoulders, her nails digging into the fabric of his shirt, as if she would fall if she let go. He gently pushed her against the wall beside the fireplace. The cold surface contrasted with the blazing heat consuming her body. Luke pressed his body against hers, one hand moving up to tangle in Lisa's damp hair, pulling her head back and exposing her neck. He left a trail of kisses along her jaw, down the delicate curve of her neck, gently nibbling the sensitive skin just below her ear. Lisa moaned, a low, involuntary sound that seemed to come from a deep and forgotten place inside her. "That's it," he murmured against her skin, his voice rough with desire. "That sound. I want to hear it again." And then he kissed her again, this time slower but no less intense. His lips moved against hers with calculated precision, exploring, tasting, dominating. The hand on her waist moved up, grazing the side of her body, stopping just below her breasts, his thumb tracing small circles through the thin fabric of her blouse. Lisa felt the heat explode in her belly, a desire so overwhelming it was almost painful. She arched her body, seeking more contact, more pressure, more of him. "Easy," he whispered. But there was a tremor in his voice, as if he too was on the edge of control. "Don't rush. We have all night. All night." The words echoed in Lisa's mind like an alarm bell. This was insane, pure insanity. But when he kissed her again, when his large, strong hands held her as if she were the most precious thing in the world, all reason dissolved. He lifted her easily, his hands under her thighs, and Lisa instinctively wrapped her legs around his waist. She felt his hardness pressed against her, the promise of something more, something that made her tremble with anticipation. Luke carried her to the sofa, laying her down carefully but never breaking the kiss. He positioned himself over her, the weight of his body anchoring her, making her feel both protected and desired. "You're beautiful," he said, pulling back just enough to look into her eyes. Wounded, but beautiful. Tears burned in Lisa's eyes, not from sadness, but from relief, from finally being seen. He kissed each eyelid, each cheek, the tip of her nose, before returning to her lips. This time the kiss was different, slower, deeper, as if he was memorizing every detail, every texture, every sigh. And Lisa surrendered completely. She forgot David, forgot the pain, forgot even her own name. There was only this moment, this kiss, this man who made her feel alive for the first time in days. When they finally pulled apart, breathless, forehead against forehead, eyes locked on each other, Lisa knew nothing would ever be the same again. "Come with me," he whispered, his voice loaded with promise and danger. And Lisa, against all common sense, against all logic, nodded. Because in that moment, she didn't want to be the sensible woman. She wanted to be the woman who burned, the woman who defied, the woman who lived. And he, this mysterious stranger who kissed her as if she were the air he breathed, was exactly the fire she needed. Luke held Lisa's hand and guided her down the wide hallway, his firm steps echoing against the hardwood floor. The soft light from modern fixtures created elongated shadows on the white walls decorated with black and white photographs, deserted landscapes, stormy oceans, anonymous faces frozen in moments of solitude. Lisa noticed this house was beautiful but empty, as if it were just an elegant shell protecting something fragile inside. They climbed a spiral staircase, the steps covered by a dark gray carpet that muffled any sound. With each step, Lisa's heart beat faster, not from fear, though there was fear, yes, but from an electric anticipation that ran through every nerve in her body. She didn't know this man's name. She knew nothing about him, and yet she was climbing the stairs of his house, about to cross a line that couldn't be uncrossed. He stopped in front of a double door of dark oak, his hand still holding hers. He turned, his gray eyes studying her with an intensity that made her tremble. "Before we go in," he said, his voice low, controlled, but loaded with something dangerous, "I need you to understand something." Lisa swallowed hard. "What?" "In here, I'm in charge." There was no arrogance in his words, just certainty. "You do what I say, and you trust me. That's the only rule." The silence between them was thick, heavy as the storm still raging outside. Lisa should say no. She should run away. But something in those eyes, a vulnerability hidden beneath the surface of control, held her. "What if I don't trust you?" she challenged, her voice firmer than expected. A slow, almost sad smile curved his lips. "Then don't come in." He released her hand, took a step back, giving her choice, giving her power. And it was exactly because of this that Lisa stepped forward. "I trust you," she whispered. The change in his eyes was instant. The stormy gray darkened, transforming into something almost black. He opened the door. The bedroom was a sanctuary, walls in charcoal gray tones. A king-size bed with impeccable black sheets, floor-to-ceiling windows revealing the illuminated city in the distance, tiny points of light, defying the darkness of night. A dark leather armchair rested in one corner beside a bookshelf filled with books. Candles, dozens of them, were strategically positioned, unlit, waiting. Luke closed the door behind them with a soft click that sounded final, definitive. Lisa felt the air change, become denser, more charged. He lit the candles with a silver lighter, one by one, until the golden flickering light transformed the room into something between reality and dream. The smell of vanilla and sandalwood filled the air. "Come here," he ordered softly, pointing to the space between him and the wall. Lisa obeyed, her legs trembling slightly. He positioned himself behind her, so close she could feel the heat from his body, his breath grazing her neck. "Close your eyes," he murmured. She closed them. The world darkened, and all other senses intensified the sound of his breathing, the smell of his masculine scent mixed with the candle smoke, the sensation of his fingers large, calloused, incredibly gentle, moving her hair to the side, exposing her neck. "When you're here," he whispered, his lips almost touching her ear. "The world out there doesn't exist. Your worries, your pain, your past, none of it matters. There's only you and me, and what we feel right now." His words were like a spell, disarming every defense Lisa had built. She felt tears sting her eyes, but they didn't fall. Not yet. Luke slid his hands down her arms slowly, memorizing every curve until he reached her wrists. He held them firmly, not hurting, but asserting presence. "Raise your arms," he ordered. Lisa obeyed. He lifted her arms above her head, gently pressing them against the cold wall. The contrast between the coldness of the surface and the heat of his body behind her was thrilling. Then she felt it, something soft, leather, she realized, wrapping around her wrists. "A belt?" He tied it carefully, testing the pressure. "Too tight?" he asked, his voice husky. "No," she replied, her breathing quickening. There was no pain, just symbolic restraint, just the sensation of surrendering control, of finally not needing to be strong. Luke pressed his body against her back. Lisa felt every inch of him, the hard chest, the heavy breathing, the unmistakable hardness pressed against her lower back. He was as affected as she was. "You're different," he whispered, his lips grazing the curve of her neck, not quite touching, just the hot breath. "So different." His large hand slid down her waist, moving slowly up her ribs, stopping just below her breasts. Lisa arched her body involuntarily, seeking more contact. "Patience," he murmured, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "Not yet." He kissed her neck, soft, almost reverent. His tongue traced a hot line from the base to just below her ear, and Lisa couldn't contain the low moan that escaped. "That's it," he said, his voice vibrating against her skin. "Don't hide from me. I want to hear everything you feel." His hands continued, exploring, always slow, always controlled. He unbuttoned the first button of her blouse, then the second. The fabric opened, revealing pale skin, breasts covered only by a black lace bra. "Perfect," he whispered. And he didn't seem to be talking just about her body. He seemed to be talking about everything, the vulnerability, the surrender, the moment. Luke turned Lisa to face him, her eyes finally opening. He held her face with both hands, his thumbs caressing her cheeks. "Who hurt you?" he asked, and there was something wild in his voice now. "Who took the light from your eyes?" Lisa trembled. How did he know? How did he see through her so easily? "It doesn't matter," she whispered. "He's not here." "No, he's not." Luke brought his face closer, his forehead touching hers. "But I am. And while you're here, I won't let anything hurt you, not even your own memories." And then he kissed her different from the previous kisses. This one was slow, deep, healing, as if he was sealing a promise that neither of them fully understood. When they pulled apart, he untied her wrists carefully, gently massaging where the leather had touched. Lisa looked at him, really looked, and saw not just the powerful, controlled man. She saw someone who also carried scars, someone who also searched for something he couldn't name. "Stay with me tonight," he asked. And for the first time, it wasn't an order. It was a request, vulnerable, human. Lisa nodded, unable to speak. And as he guided her to the bed, as the candles crackled and the storm outside began to calm, Lisa realized she had entered this house as a broken woman. But maybe, just maybe, she could leave it whole or at least begin to pick up the pieces. Morning arrived with a cruel brightness. The first rays of sun pierced through the gray curtains of the room, drawing golden stripes across the rumpled sheets. Lisa woke slowly, her body still heavy with exhaustion and satisfaction. Every muscle remembered the night before, the touches, the kisses, the complete surrender that left her vulnerable and paradoxically stronger than ever. She turned her head on the pillow. Luke slept beside her, his face relaxed in a way that made him seem younger, almost innocent. Dark hair fell over his forehead, lips slightly parted, chest rising and falling in deep, peaceful breaths. For the first time, she saw the small imperfections that humanized this seemingly perfect man, an almost invisible scar above his left eyebrow, fine lines around his eyes that told untold stories. Panic began to seep slowly into her chest like ice-cold water rising. What had she done? Reality hit like a punch. She wasn't Jade. She never was. She was Lisa Morgan, an ordinary woman with a broken heart, who had lied, even if by omission, and spent the night with a complete stranger, a man whose name she didn't even know until he whispered it in the heat of the moment. "I'm Luke. Luke Montenegro." Montenegro. The name echoed in her mind with crushing weight. She'd heard that name before on the news, in business magazines that Rachel flipped through at work. It didn't matter. What mattered was that she needed to leave. Now, with careful movements, Lisa slid out of bed, trying not to make noise. Her eyes swept the room looking for her clothes. The blouse was folded over the armchair. The pants hung on the backrest. The shoes aligned near the door as if someone had organized them with purpose. Luke, he had taken care of every detail, even while she slept. Guilt tightened her throat. She dressed quickly, her fingers trembling as she buttoned her blouse. She took one last look at Luke. He continued sleeping, his expression serene, oblivious to the storm forming inside her. "Sorry," she whispered to the empty air, knowing he couldn't hear her, and then she left. She descended the stairs in silence, crossed the hall, opened the front door, and was swallowed by the world outside. A black luxury car was already waiting at the entrance. A uniformed driver opened the back door without asking questions, as if he'd been instructed in advance. Lisa got in. The cold leather against her still sensitive legs. The car began to move, pulling away from the mansion, and Lisa didn't look back because if she did, she knew she would return. Luke woke up alone. He knew immediately, even before opening his eyes. The space beside him was cold. There was no soft sound of feminine breathing, no citrus perfume that had intertwined with the sheets during the night. He opened his eyes slowly, reality settling like lead in his stomach. She was gone. Luke sat up in bed, running his hands through his messy hair. He looked at the place where she had slept. The pillow still held the shape of her head. He picked it up, pressing it against his face, inhaling what remained of her scent: jasmine, rain, and something uniquely hers. Something inside him broke. In his 35 years of life, Luke Montenegro had known countless women, beautiful, intelligent, sophisticated, but none, absolutely none, had touched him the way she had. Not just physically, though God knew her body was pure art, but emotionally. She had seen him, really seen him behind the walls he'd built, behind the mask of the impenetrable billionaire. He got up, put on a black robe, and went down to his office. He picked up the phone and dialed the number of the agency he'd hired, Elite Companions Agency. "Good morning. How can I help you?" The professional female voice answered after 2 rings. "This is Luke Montenegro. I'd like to schedule again with Jade, the same one from last night." There was a pause that was too long. "Mr. Montenegro," the voice hesitated. There was a misunderstanding. The companion, Jade, didn't show up for yesterday's appointment. She had car trouble and missed the time. "We sincerely apologize for the inconvenience. Naturally, we won't charge for the service." And wait, Luke's voice came out louder than he intended. He forced himself to breathe. "What did you say?" "Jade didn't show up, sir. We tried to contact you, but—" Luke hung up. The phone fell from his hand, hitting the wooden floor with a dull thud. She wasn't Jade, the woman who was in his house, the one who kissed him with an intensity that made him lose control, who surrendered with a vulnerability that cracked his chest open, who moaned his name like a prayer. Wasn't who he thought she was. Who the hell was she? He murmured to the emptiness of the office. His mind returned relentlessly to every detail of the night before, the way she trembled when he first touched her, her eyes deep brown, full of pain and desire mixed together, fixed on his, as if he were the only real thing in the world. The sound of the low moan she tried to contain when he kissed that sensitive spot just below her ear, the taste of her skin slightly salty, addictive, the scent of her wet hair when he buried his face in it. Everything, every damn detail was etched in his brain like fire. Luke clenched his fists, nails digging into his palms. His entire body vibrated with the memory, the need, the desire that wasn't satisfied even after hours of mutual surrender. "Never," he whispered, his voice breaking. "No woman has ever made me feel that." It was true, and it terrified him. He'd been with beautiful women, experienced women, women who knew exactly how to tease, how to satisfy, but with her, with this mysterious stranger who entered his house like a storm and left like a ghost, it was different. It was visceral. It was as if something inside him, something that had been asleep, buried under years of control and detachment, had violently awakened. She didn't just touch him, she consumed him. Even in surrendering, even allowing him to take control, she was the one with the real power, because she made him feel fear of losing her, feel the desire to protect her, feel the need to know every secret she hid. Luke walked to the window, looking at the city beginning to wake below, executives rushing to meetings, cars filling the streets, life happening as it always did. But for him, nothing would be the same. "I will find you," he vowed quietly, his jaw tense. "I don't know who you are. I don't know why you came into my life this way, but I swear I will find you." Because that night hadn't been just sex. It hadn't been just a fleeting physical connection. It had been the first time in years that Luke Montenegro felt alive, and he wasn't willing to let that slip away. Not without a fight. 3 weeks, 21 endless days since that night. Luke Montenegro had become an obsessed man. Every woman who passed him on the street, brown hair, average height, citrus perfume, made his heart race for a fraction of a second, only to crash in disappointment when he realized it wasn't her. He hired private investigators, but without a name, without a clear photo, without anything but fragmented memories and the scent of jasmine that refused to leave his sheets. The searches led nowhere. He worked less, slept poorly, dreamed of her every night. Those brown eyes full of secrets, that low contained moan, the feeling of her skin under his fingers. He'd wake up sweating, his body tense with desire, searching for someone who wasn't there. It was madness. He knew it, but he couldn't stop until fate, or the universe, or whatever controlled these things, decided to give him a second chance. The annual Montenegro Foundation charity event was tedious as always, businessmen in dark suits exchanging cards, women in designer dresses feigning interest in conversations about investments and philanthropy. Luke circulated through the luxurious hotel ballroom, shaking hands, smiling politely while his mind was miles away, trapped in a night of storm and surrender. And then he saw her. The world stopped. Lisa was beside a white marble column, talking with a red-haired woman, her friend Rachel, though Luke didn't know that yet. She wore a navy blue dress that hugged her curves in an elegant but understated way, the fabric falling to her knees, revealing toned legs in classic black heels. Her hair was pulled back in a low bun, some loose strands framing her face. Pearl earrings caught the golden light from the chandeliers. She was beautiful, real, and completely unaware. Luke's heart exploded in his chest like silent thunder. His hands trembled, something that never happened. He'd faced multi-million-dollar negotiations without blinking. He'd given speeches to hundreds of people without feeling nervous. But seeing her there so close yet still so distant completely threw him off balance. He began walking toward her, each step measured, controlled, though inside he was pure chaos. Lisa was laughing at something Rachel said when she felt it, that unmistakable sensation of being watched. She turned her head and froze. Luke Montenegro was a few feet away, his gray eyes fixed on her with an intensity that cut through her like a sharp blade. He was impeccable in a tailored black tuxedo, the tie perfectly aligned, hair combed back revealing every angle of his sculpted face. But it was the eyes, those damn stormy eyes, that trapped her. Recognition, desire, and something more dangerous, anger. Panic flooded Lisa like boiling water. She took a step back, nearly tripping over her own heels. "Lisa, are you okay?" Rachel touched her arm, worried. "I need to go to the bathroom," Lisa forced a trembling smile. "I'll be right back." She turned, ready to flee, but a firm hand caught her wrist, not forcefully, but with a determination that wouldn't accept denial. "No." Luke's voice was low, husky, vibrating with contained emotion. "Don't even think about running away again." Lisa closed her eyes for a second, gathering courage to face him. When she opened them, he was so close she could feel the heat radiating from him, the woody scent that haunted her dreams. "I need to talk to you." It wasn't a request. Rachel looked between the two, her eyes wide. "Lisa, it's fine." Lisa lied, her voice failing. "I know him." Know him was the understatement of the century. Luke didn't wait for more excuses. He guided her through the crowd, his hand still holding her wrist, not hurting, but making it clear she wouldn't escape. They crossed glass doors that led to a private terrace. The Seattle night was cold, the wind blowing gently, bringing the smell of imminent rain. He released her only when they were alone, away from curious eyes. Lisa hugged herself, trembling not from the cold, but from his proximity, from the memory flooding every cell of her body. "You're not Jade." It wasn't a question. It was a calm accusation, but loaded. "No, I'm not." "I know." He took a step toward her, his jaw tense. "The agency told me." Jade never showed up that night. Lisa swallowed hard, unable to find words. "So who the hell are you?" His voice rose slightly, anger beginning to leak through the cracks in his control. "Why did you come into my house? Why did you lie? Why?" He ran his hand through his hair, disheveling it for the first time. "Why can't I stop thinking about you?" The last question came out almost as a desperate whisper, and that's what broke Lisa's armor. "I didn't mean to lie," she began, her voice trembling. "I was delivering something for a friend. The GPS failed. I knocked on the wrong door. And when you thought I was someone else, I should have explained. I know. But you looked at me in a way that no one ever looked at me before. What way?" He moved closer now, so close she had to tilt her head back to face him. "Like I mattered." The words came out raw, honest, painful. "Like I was more than just broken pieces." Luke's face softened for a fraction of a second. He raised his hand, hesitant for the first time, and with surprising gentleness brushed away a strand of hair that had escaped from her bun. "You don't owe me an explanation about why you were broken," he said quietly, his fingers grazing her cheek. "But you owe me an explanation about why you disappeared." Tears burned in Lisa's eyes. "Because I was scared of me, of myself, of what I felt, of what I did. You don't know me. I'm not that woman who spent the night at your house. I'm just Lisa. Lisa Morgan, an ordinary woman who had her heart shattered by her ex-fiancé 3 days before that night." The confession hung between them like smoke. Luke studied her for a long moment. Then slowly he placed his hands on both sides of her face, forcing her to look directly into his eyes. Do you think I care who you were before that night?" His voice was firm, almost fierce. "Do you think I care if your heart was broken? If you were running from something? If you came into my house by mistake?" Lisa trembled between his hands. "The only thing that matters," he continued, his forehead now touching hers, "is that you made me feel something I've never felt before. And since that damn night, I can't breathe right. I can't sleep. I can't exist without looking for you in every face I see. Luke." She whispered his name for the first time since that night, and the sound made something inside him break and rebuild at the same time. "Come with me," he asked, and there was a vulnerability in his voice she never imagined hearing. "Now, please." Lisa knew she should say no, knew she was on the edge of a dangerous precipice. But when she looked into his eyes, those stormy eyes that saw her like no one else did, she knew she had already fallen. "Yes," she whispered. And when he pulled her against him, when his lips found hers in a hungry, desperate kiss, the world around them disappeared. There was only them again, finally. Lisa's apartment was modest compared to Luke's mansion, a small but cozy space on the third floor of an old building in downtown Seattle. White walls decorated with framed photographs, landscapes she herself had captured, frozen moments of simple beauty. A beige sofa covered with colorful throws, books stacked on every available surface, the smell of coffee and lavender in the air. It was the complete opposite of his world. And for some reason, it made Luke feel more at home than his own mansion ever had. Lisa locked the door behind them, her fingers trembling slightly as she turned the key. The reality of what was happening crashed over her like a weight. He was here in her space, surrounded by her things, her memories, her real life, not the fantasy version she'd created that stormy night. "Do you want coffee? Water?" she offered, her voice hesitant, avoiding looking directly at him. "Lisa." The name came out soft but loaded with meaning. She finally turned, meeting those gray eyes that seemed to see through every layer of protection she tried to build. Luke stood in the middle of the small living room, hands in his tuxedo pockets, shoulders tense. He seemed too big for this space, like a caged lion. But there was something in his expression, a poorly disguised vulnerability that made him human. "I don't want coffee," he said simply. "I want answers." Lisa hugged herself, a defensive gesture. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." He took a step toward her. "Start from the beginning. Why were you at my house that night?" And then slowly the words began to flow. Lisa told him about David, the fiancé she thought she knew, the man who promised to love her forever, only to destroy her with a betrayal that still burned like hot coals. She told him about the pain consuming her, the feeling of drowning in a sea of inadequacy and rejection. "I thought there was something wrong with me," she admitted, her voice breaking, "that I wasn't pretty enough, interesting enough, good enough." Luke clenched his fists, his jaw locking. The idea of someone making this extraordinary woman feel inadequate enraged him in a primal way. Lisa continued telling him about Rachel's call, the delivery that should have been simple, the storm, the GPS failing, the open door. "And then you were there," she whispered, her eyes finally meeting his. "And you looked at me like I was the most desirable thing you'd ever seen. Not broken, Lisa. Not the rejected bride, just me." "Because you are," Luke interrupted, his voice fierce. "You are the most desirable thing I've ever seen." Tears streamed down Lisa's cheeks. "That kiss was the first thing I really felt after the betrayal. It was insane. It was wrong, but I needed to feel alive. And you, God, you made me feel so alive." Luke closed the distance between them in 2 long strides. His large hands found her face, his thumbs wiping away the tears that kept falling. "You have no idea what you did to me, Lisa." His voice was low, intense, vibrating with emotion. "That night when I woke up and you weren't there, it was like someone had ripped something vital from inside me." She sobbed, her hands gripping his wrists like an anchor. "I spent 3 weeks looking for you," he confessed, his forehead pressing against hers. 3 weeks, wondering if I'd dreamed it all, if you were real. And then I saw you today at that event, and it was like I could breathe again for the first time since you left." Luke, his name from her lips sounded like a prayer. "I don't care that you came into my house by mistake," he continued, the words coming in an urgent flow. "I don't care that you lied, or that you were heartbroken, or that it started the wrong way. The only thing that matters is that you're here now, real, in front of me." Lisa looked at him, really looked. She saw beyond the powerful billionaire, beyond the man who commanded boardrooms and built empires. She saw someone who was also scared, someone who was also falling. "I can't stop thinking about you," she admitted, her voice trembling. "Every night I wake up looking for you. Every morning I hate myself for running away." "Then don't run again." His gray eyes pierced hers, full of an intensity that left her breathless. "Stay, at least for tonight. Let me really know you. No lies, no masks." Lisa hesitated for only a second. Then she nodded, unable to deny what her body and heart were screaming. Luke smiled a small but genuine smile and slid his hands through her hair, undoing the bun with delicate movements until the brown strands fell over her shoulders. He ran his fingers through the locks, memorizing the silky texture. "You're beautiful," he murmured, as if seeing her for the first time. "I'm not," she began, but he silenced her words by placing a finger over her lips. "Don't argue with me about this." There was a playful tone in his voice, but also seriousness. "I spent 3 weeks obsessed with every detail of you. Trust me. You're beautiful." And then he kissed her. But this kiss was different from all the previous ones. There was no urgency, no desperation. It was slow, deliberate, as if he was savoring every second, every touch, every shared breath. His lips moved against hers with a tenderness that made her tremble. It wasn't just desire, though. There was enough desire to set the small apartment on fire. It was connection. It was recognition. It was two wounded souls finding solace in each other. Lisa's hands moved up his shoulders, feeling the tension of muscles under the expensive fabric of the tuxedo. She pulled at the knot of his tie, loosening it slowly, and Luke groaned softly against her lips, a sound that made her smile in the middle of the kiss. He pulled her closer, his hands sliding down the curve of her back, her waist, her hips, as if he needed to memorize her through touch. Lisa arched her body against him and felt the immediate reaction, the unmistakable hardness pressed against her belly. "Lisa," he whispered, pulling back just enough to look into her eyes. "If you want me to stop, say it now, because soon I won't be able to." She held his face between her hands, her thumbs tracing the lines of his jaw. "Don't stop," she whispered back. "Never stop." And then there were no more words, just hands exploring, kisses burning paths across exposed skin, clothes falling to the floor like autumn leaves, quickened breaths and contained moans. Luke lifted her easily, and Lisa wrapped her legs around his waist as he carried her to the small but welcoming bedroom. Moonlight streamed through the window, bathing everything in silver. He laid her on the bed with a reverence that made her feel precious. And when their bodies finally joined skin against skin, heart against heart, it wasn't just physical. It was healing. It was rebirth. It was two broken people finding strength in each other. And as they moved together, as they whispered names and promises and confessions in the dark, Lisa realized she hadn't walked into the wrong house that stormy night. She had found exactly where she was supposed to be. The silvery moonlight drew soft shadows across Lisa's skin, transforming her body into a living work of art. Luke watched her, lying on the bed, brown hair spread across the white pillow like a dark halo, half-closed eyes shining with desire and vulnerability. She was real, finally, completely real, not a fantasy haunting him in lonely early mornings, but flesh and bone, sighs and racing heartbeats. He leaned over her, supporting his weight on his forearm so as not to crush her, but close enough for their bodies to touch, at strategic points, chest against chest, hip against hip. The heat between them was palpable, electric, as if the air around them crackled with pure energy. "I've dreamed of this since that night," Luke whispered. His hoarse voice transformed into dark velvet by need. His lips grazed her temple, slowly descending her cheek, the line of her jaw, leaving a trail of kisses soft as feathers but burning like hot coals. Lisa closed her eyes, surrendering completely to the sensation. Each touch of his was a promise. Each kiss was a silent confession. She arched her neck, offering more, and he accepted the offer with a low moan that vibrated against her sensitive skin. Luke's hands began their own journey, large, calloused, but surprisingly gentle. They slid down the sides of her body, tracing the curve of her ribs, her slender waist, her generous hips. He memorized every inch like a blind person reading Braille, as if he could engrave in muscle memory the exact map of who she was. "You're perfect," he murmured against the skin of her neck, his lips vibrating with the words. It wasn't empty flattery. It was raw truth, torn from the depths of his soul. Every curve, every mark, every breath, perfect. Lisa shivered, her hands rising to grip his broad shoulders, feeling the tense muscles under his warm skin. "Luke." She whispered his name, like a request, a need, a plea. He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. Tell me what you want." "You?" The answer came out simple, honest, devastating. "Only you." Something in his eyes changed. The stormy gray darkened to almost black. He captured her lips in a deep, hungry kiss, his tongue sliding against hers in a dance that wasn't new but felt like it was being discovered for the first time. Lisa moaned into his mouth, the sound muffled but loaded with desire. Luke's hands continued exploring. They moved up her back, his fingers tracing her spine with torturous slowness until they reached her shoulders. He slid the straps of her dress already half unbuttoned down her arms, revealing pale skin inch by inch. The fabric slipped, exposing Lisa's breasts, and the cold apartment air made them tighten immediately. Luke pulled back to look, and what she saw in his eyes was pure reverence, not just carnal desire, but something deeper. Admiration, wonder. "Perfect," he repeated, almost to himself. He lowered his head, and Lisa felt his mouth hot, wet, deliciously sinful close around a hardened nipple. She arched her back involuntarily, a loud moan escaping her lips. His tongue circled, sucked, gently nibbled, while his free hand caressed the other breast with firm but delicate movements. "Luke, God." She could barely form coherent words. The pleasure was a rising wave, threatening to drown her in the most delicious way. He alternated between one breast and the other, giving equal attention to both, while his hands continued the work of completely removing her dress. The fabric slid down her legs, falling to the floor with a whisper of silk. She was only in panties, now a simple piece of black lace that somehow seemed more erotic than any expensive lingerie. Luke kissed the valley between her breasts, descending down her stomach, his tongue tracing small circles around her navel. Lisa trembled, her hands threading through his hair, pulling gently, and he groaned against her skin, a primal sound that made her feel powerful. "You provoke me," he said, his voice rough, almost desperate. "Every breath of yours, every moan, every time you say my name provokes me beyond endurance." He reached the elastic of her panties, his fingers playing with the lace, teasing but not yet removing. Lisa lifted her hips in a silent invitation, and he smiled against her skin, a wolfish smile, dangerous, full of promises. "Patience," he murmured, echoing the words he'd said that first night. "I want to savor every second." And then finally, he removed the last barrier of fabric. Lisa was completely exposed, now vulnerable under his gaze, but strangely she didn't feel embarrassed. The way he looked at her as if she were the most precious thing in the world made any insecurity dissolve. Luke slid his hands down her thighs, his fingers massaging the tense muscles, moving up slowly, torturously slow until he reached the center of all the heat and desire. When he finally touched her there, Lisa cried out his name, her body arching off the bed as if levitating. "So wet," he whispered, amazed. "All this for me?" "Yes," she managed to gasp. "Always, always for you." He explored with skillful fingers, finding every sensitive spot as if he had a detailed map of her pleasure. Lisa writhed, her hands clutching the sheets, then his shoulders, then anything she could hold on to as pleasure rose like a relentless tide. "Luke, I won't, I can't." She tried to warn him, but it was too late. The orgasm hit her like lightning, coursing through every nerve, making her entire body tremble. She screamed a primal, uninhibited sound as waves of pleasure consumed her. He held her through it all, whispering soft words in her ear, gentle kisses on her forehead, until she finally descended from the crest. "Perfect," he said again, and this time there was a wet emotion in his voice that made Lisa's heart squeeze. She pulled his face close, kissing him with a depth that went beyond the physical. "I need you," she whispered against his lips. "Now, please." Luke pulled back only long enough to remove his own clothes, the shirt falling to the floor, the pants following soon after. And then he was over her again, naked, gloriously masculine, every defined muscle tensed with contained need. He positioned himself between her legs, his eyes fixed on hers. "If you want me to stop, say it now." Lisa held his face between her hands, her eyes shining with unshed tears and undeclared love. "Don't stop. Never stop." And then he entered slow, deliciously slow, filling every empty space inside her until there was no separation between where she ended and he began. Lisa gasped, her nails digging into his back, and Luke groaned a guttural, broken, perfect sound. They moved together in a rhythm as old as time but unique to them. It wasn't just sex. It was communication. It was connection. It was two souls meeting in the middle of chaos and deciding to stay. "Lisa." He whispered her name like a prayer, his forehead pressed against hers, eyes closed in ecstasy. "You're mine." "Mine," she agreed, her voice broken by quickened breathing. "And you're mine." The rhythm increased. Their bodies danced together, sweat mingling, breaths synchronizing. Her hands traveled across his back, feeling every contracted muscle, every tremor. His hands gripped her hips, pulling her closer, deeper, more complete. And when climax hit them together simultaneously like an explosion of light and heat, they cried out each other's names, staring fixedly into each other's eyes, seeing naked and raw souls. Afterward, lying among rumpled sheets and ragged breathing, Luke pulled Lisa into his arms, enveloping her completely. He kissed the palm of her hand, then her fingers one by one as if every part of her deserved worship. "You belong to me, Lisa," he whispered in the soft darkness of the room. "And I'm yours completely." And as she fell asleep in his arms, finally at peace, finally whole, Lisa knew she had been broken once. But now, she was being rebuilt, piece by piece, kiss by kiss for him, with him, through him. Sunlight invaded Lisa's bedroom through the window, lacking thick curtains, drawing golden patterns across the rumpled white sheets. Luke woke first, as he always did, a habit from years of running companies and making decisions before the rest of the world woke up. But this time, for the first time in years, he had no desire to get out of bed. Lisa slept nestled against his chest, her soft breathing tickling his skin, brown hair spread across his shoulder like dark silk. One of her hands rested over his heart, and Luke covered that hand with his, intertwining their fingers. Perfect. Everything felt absurdly perfect. He had built an empire, had negotiated with the most powerful men in the world, conquered everything money could buy. But there, in that modest apartment, holding this woman in his arms, Luke Montenegro finally understood what true wealth meant. Lisa stirred, her lashes fluttering before slowly opening her eyes. When she focused on his face so close, she could count every dark lash. A slow, genuine smile lit up her features. "Good morning," she whispered, her voice husky from sleep and satisfaction. "Good morning, love." The word escaped naturally without thinking, and they both froze. For a second he surprised at himself. She with her heart exploding in her chest, but neither pulled back. Instead, Lisa leaned in and kissed him softly, a slow, sweet morning kiss that asked for nothing but presence. "Coffee?" she offered. "When they separated, only if you let me make it." Lisa laughed a light, musical sound that Luke immediately decided he wanted to hear every day for the rest of his life. "You know how to cook? I might surprise you." He winked, getting out of bed with the grace of someone completely comfortable in his own skin, completely naked in the daylight. 20 minutes later, they were sitting at the small kitchen counter, sharing pancakes that Luke had made surprisingly well while drinking coffee that was too strong and laughing at bad jokes. It was domestic, simple, and absolutely revolutionary for both of them. The days that followed were a revelation. Luke didn't immediately return to his empty mansion. Instead, he canceled meetings, delegated responsibilities, something that shocked his assistant, and stayed. In Lisa's small apartment, in her world, they talked. God, how they talked about everything and nothing. Luke told her about his lonely childhood as an only child of parents more interested in building fortunes than families. About how he learned early on that control was the only way to avoid pain, about the walls he built so high that even he couldn't scale them. "Until you," he confessed one night, lying on the beige sofa while rain drummed softly on the window. "You just broke through as if those walls had never existed." Lisa traced invisible patterns on his chest with her finger. Maybe because I had walls too, and I recognized yours." She told him about her dreams of being a professional photographer, dreams that David had ridiculed as cute hobbies, about how she lost parts of herself trying to fit into the version he wanted, about the pain of betrayal that still burned but was beginning to heal. "He didn't deserve you," Luke said with fierce intensity, holding her face between his hands. Not for a second. Luke took her to discreet dinners at hidden restaurants where no one recognized them, intimate places with flickering candles and soft music where they could lose themselves in each other without the weight of curious stares. He learned that she hated oysters but loved sushi, that she laughed loudly when she was truly happy, that she bit her lower lip when she was nervous. She discovered that he had a secret collection of old vinyls, that he played piano not perfectly, but with passion, that he had a scar on his left shoulder from surgery after a car accident at 17, that he loved black coffee, but pretended to like tea at formal meetings to seem more sophisticated. They laughed. God, how they laughed at silly and profound things, at inside jokes only they understood, at the absurdity of how they met in a mistake that was actually fate correcting its course. One morning, Lisa woke to the smell of roses. She opened her eyes and found Luke standing beside the bed holding an enormous bouquet of white roses, her favorite flower, which he discovered through a photograph in the living room. "Just because," he said with a shy smile that didn't match the powerful billionaire the world knew. Lisa cried, not from sadness, but from overwhelming gratitude for having found someone who saw her, really saw her. He showed up at her work, a small art gallery where she worked as an assistant with coffee exactly the way she liked it. He waited at the end of her shift, leaning against his luxury car, completely out of place in the simple neighborhood but not caring one bit. "I thought we could have dinner," he'd say. And she always said yes. Lisa knew him in his vulnerable moments too, nights when he woke up sweating, trapped in nightmares about failure and loneliness. She held him, whispering soft words until his breathing calmed. And he returned the favor when she woke up crying, still haunted by David's betrayal, reminding her that she wasn't defined by the pain others caused. "You're defined by how you stand up," he'd say, kissing her forehead. "And love, you're standing stronger than ever." They made love a lot, sometimes urgent and desperate, as if trying to fuse into a single person. Other times slow and sweet, exploring every inch with reverence. And always, always it ended with them intertwined, whispering confessions in the dark. Luke began opening his world to her, not the world of business and power, but his real world. He took her to the mansion through the front door this time, and showed her his music studio, the place he went when the weight of the world got too heavy. "No one's ever seen this," he admitted, his fingers nervously touching the piano keys. "Only you." Lisa held his hand. "Thank you for trusting me." He played for her a melody he composed years ago when he still believed that songs could cure loneliness. And as the notes filled the air, Lisa realized she was falling in love, not for the first time that had happened the night of the storm, though she couldn't name it then, but in a deeper, more complete way. And looking at his profile illuminated by the soft light of the chandelier, eyes closed as he played, she knew he was too. "I love you," she said when the music ended, the silence still vibrating in the air. Luke opened his eyes slowly, turning to face her. For a moment, he said nothing, and fear began to creep into her chest. But then he smiled, a huge, genuine smile that completely transformed his face. "I love you too," he replied, his voice full of wonder, as if he was saying it for the first time in his life. And maybe he was. So much it scares me. They kissed there, surrounded by instruments and old sheet music, sealing promises that didn't even need to be spoken aloud. Because true love wasn't about grand gestures. It was about showing up, about morning coffee, about knowing each other's fears and choosing to stay anyway, about building something real brick by brick, kiss by kiss, day by day. And they were building together. 3 months had passed since that night at the charity event, 3 months of discoveries, laughter, shared tears, and love growing like a plant that had finally found fertile soil. Lisa and Luke were inseparable, not in the suffocating way that had trapped her with David, but in the light and natural way of two people who simply worked better together. On a Friday night, when autumn painted Seattle in shades of amber and bronze, Luke showed up at Lisa's apartment with a mysterious smile and a single white rose in his hand. "Wear something comfortable but nice," he said, kissing her forehead. I have a surprise. Lisa looked at him suspiciously but also intrigued. What kind of surprise? If I tell you, it won't be a surprise. He winked that mischievous boy smile she'd learned to love. Do you trust me? Always, she answered without hesitation, and it was true. After months together, the trust between them was absolute. 30 minutes later, they were in Luke's car, not the ostentatious limousine, but a comfortable and discreet sedan driving through the city's illuminated streets. Lisa recognized the route. They were going to his mansion. Luke, she began, her heart racing. I know what you're thinking, he gently interrupted, holding her hand over the gear shift. But it's not what you imagine. Or maybe it is, but different. Better. I promise. When they arrived, the mansion was transformed. Candles, hundreds of them, illuminated the path from the gate to the front door. White rose petals created a natural carpet over the stone floor. Soft music played from somewhere hidden, a piano melody that Lisa recognized immediately. It was the song Luke had played for her that special night. Luke, tears already burned in her eyes. What is all this? He got out of the car, went around and opened the door for her, extending his hand like a gentleman from another century. I want to show you who I am. No games, no masks, just you. His voice trembled slightly, revealing nervousness hidden beneath the surface of confidence. Lisa placed her hand in his and let herself be guided. They entered through the front door, the same one she'd crossed that stormy night, but everything seemed different now. The hall was softly illuminated by candles floating in glass vases. Framed photographs had been added to the walls, photographs of the two of them at dinners, laughing in her apartment, embracing in a park. Moments captured in 3 months of happiness. When did you? Lisa asked, amazed. I've been photographing you since day one, he admitted, blushing slightly. I couldn't help it. I wanted to capture every moment, to never forget what this is like, what it's like to be truly happy. Lisa's heart exploded. She pulled his face down and kissed him, a slow, deep kiss full of gratitude and love. Luke guided her up the stairs, the same ones they'd climbed months ago. But when they reached the bedroom, Lisa gasped. The space had been completely transformed. The curtains were open, revealing the spectacular view of the illuminated city. Candles in every corner created a golden, flickering glow. Rose petals covered the enormous bed, and on the nightstand, a framed photograph of her sleeping in that same room, that first morning sunlight, creating a halo in her hair. I took that photo before you woke up that morning, Luke confessed, his voice thick with emotion. I thought I'd never see you again, so I kept it as a memory of the only moment I felt complete. Lisa couldn't contain her tears. They flowed freely as she turned to face him. You make me feel so loved. Because you are. He held her face between his hands, his thumbs wiping away the tears. You're everything. Lisa, my light, my anchor, my home. They kissed there in the middle of the room, transformed into a sanctuary, hands exploring with familiarity but also reverence. Because this time was different. There were no lies, no masks, nothing between them but pure and true love. Luke unbuttoned her dress slowly, a simple blue dress he'd bought especially for this night. The fabric slid down her shoulders, falling in a whisper to the floor. Lisa was in white lace lingerie, delicate as petals, and Luke stepped back just to look. You're a work of art, he whispered, amazed. And I'm the luckiest man in the universe. She smiled through tears, helping him remove his own clothes, the shirt, the pants, until he was as vulnerable as she was. They lay together on the bed covered with petals, the candles casting dancing shadows on their intertwined bodies. I love you, Luke said, his gray eyes fixed on her brown ones with an intensity that stole her breath. More than I thought it was possible to love anyone. I love you, Lisa replied, her voice breaking with emotion. You saved me. You showed me that I can be loved, really loved. They made love that night in a way that transcended the physical. It was slower, deeper. Each touch was a promise. Each kiss was a confession. Each sigh was a prayer. Luke explored every inch of her as if it were the first time, but with the intimate knowledge of someone who had already memorized every curve, every sensitive spot, every sound she made when pleasure consumed her. And Lisa reciprocated with equal devotion, touching him, kissing him, loving him with everything she had. When their bodies finally joined, it wasn't just physical. It was soul against soul, heart against heart, two broken pieces that had found a way to fit together perfectly. "You're my light in the darkness," Luke whispered against her skin, his lips tracing a path down her neck, across her shoulders, back to her lips. "Before you, I just existed. Now I live." Lisa held his face, forcing him to look into her eyes as they moved together in an ancient and perfect rhythm. "And you're my healing. You showed me it's worth the risk, worth trusting, worth loving." They reached climax together, not with wild screams like the first time, but with low, broken moans, eyes fixed on each other, seeing beyond the surface, seeing the naked soul. And in that moment of complete union, they both knew this was forever. Afterward, lying among perfumed sheets and crushed petals, Luke pulled Lisa into his arms, settling her against his chest as if she had always belonged there. "Stay with me," he asked softly, kissing the top of her head. "Not just today, not just this week, but forever. Move in here. Live with me. Build a life with me." Lisa pulled back enough to look into his eyes, seeing the vulnerability there, the fear of rejection, the fragile hope. She smiled through tears. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes. And there, in that mansion she once entered by mistake, Lisa finally found what she'd been searching for her whole life. Home, not a place, but a person. Luke Montenegro, the man who mistook her for someone else, but ended up finding in her exactly who he always needed. Their love was born from a mistake, but it was the most right mistake either of them had ever made. 6 months had passed since Lisa accepted Luke's proposal, 6 months of mornings waking up in each other's arms, of dinners where they laughed until their stomachs hurt, of nights when they made love as if it were always the first and last time. The mansion, which before seemed cold and empty, was now alive, filled with Lisa's photographs on the walls, her plants in the windows, her books scattered throughout the library, her laughter echoing through the hallways. Luke had transformed one of the bedrooms into a photography studio for her, a surprise gift that made her cry with gratitude. And Lisa, in turn, filled his life with small gestures of love notes hidden in his briefcases, breakfast in bed on weekends, music playing on his piano when he came home tired from work. They were happy deeply, completely, almost frighteningly happy. And then on a spring morning, when Seattle's cherry blossoms bloomed in delicate pink tones, Luke woke Lisa with soft kisses on her neck. "Wake up, my love," he whispered against her skin. "I have a question." Lisa slowly opened her eyes, smiling when she met those gray eyes she loved so much. What kind of question at 6 in the morning? He pulled away, sitting up in bed, and for the first time in months, Lisa saw genuine nervousness on his face. He picked up something from the nightstand, a small navy blue velvet box. Lisa's heart stopped. "Lisa Morgan," Luke began, his voice trembling slightly. "You came into my life in the most unexpected way possible. A mistake, an accident, the wrong address on a stormy night. But it was the most right mistake the universe ever made." Tears were already streaming down her cheeks. "You taught me what it means to truly love, what it means to be vulnerable, what it means to have a home that's not made of walls but of embraces. You made me want to be better, not out of obligation, but because you inspire me every day." He opened the box, revealing a delicate ring, white gold, with a solitaire diamond surrounded by small stones that sparkled like captured stars. "Marry me, Lisa. Let me spend the rest of my life loving you, honoring you, making you feel as loved as you make me feel. Say yes, please." Lisa couldn't even speak. She just nodded frantically, laughing and crying at the same time, while Luke slid the ring onto her finger with hands trembling with emotion. "Yes," she finally managed to say, pulling him into a kiss, wet with tears and salty with happiness. "Yes, always, yes." They got married 3 months later, in an intimate ceremony at sunset in the mansion's garden, the same garden where Lisa had parked that stormy night almost a year ago. Only 20 people were present, close friends, Rachel as maid of honor, Luke's assistant as best man. Lisa wore a simple white lace dress, her hair loose in natural waves, a crown of white flowers. Luke was impeccable in a dark gray tuxedo. But what really made him stand out was his smile. Huge, genuine, radiant. When the officiant asked them to exchange vows, Luke held Lisa's hands, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "Lisa, I spent most of my life building walls, protecting my heart from anything that could hurt it. And then you literally came through my door and destroyed all those walls without even trying. You taught me that love isn't control. It's surrender. It's trust. It's choosing every day to stand beside someone even when it's hard. I promise to love you on the easy days and the impossible ones. I promise to see you, really see you every day. I promise to be the man you deserve because you, my love, deserve everything. There wasn't a dry eye among those present. Lisa took a deep breath, her voice trembling but firm. Luke, when I walked into your house that night, I was broken. I thought I'd never be able to trust again, never be able to love again. But you showed me that I didn't need to be perfect to be loved, that my scars didn't define me, that I could be strong and vulnerable at the same time. You're my light, my anchor, my home. And I promise to love you with everything I am. I promise to stand by your side always. I promise to remind you every day how incredible you are because you saved me, Luke. And now I want to spend the rest of my life saving you too. When the officiant finally said, "You may kiss the bride," Luke pulled Lisa against him and kissed her as if they were the only two people in the universe. The guests applauded, but they didn't even hear it. They were lost in each other. The honeymoon was in Santorini white houses, against the impossible blue of the Aegean Sea. Sunsets that painted the sky orange and purple. Starry nights where they made love under the moonlight. But when they returned to Seattle, to the mansion that was now officially their home, real life began. And it was even better than any honeymoon. Luke still desired her every day. No matter how many times they made love, and it was many, he always looked at her as if it were the first time, with that hungry gleam in his gray eyes, with that slow, dangerous smile that made her belly tighten with anticipation. One morning, 6 months after the wedding, Lisa was in the kitchen making coffee when she felt his arms wrapping around her waist from behind. He pressed his body against her back, and she immediately felt his hardness pressed against her. "Good morning, Mrs. Montenegro," he murmured against her neck, his lips grazing her sensitive skin. Lisa smiled, tilting her head to give him more access. Someone woke up inspired. "I wake up like this every day because of you." He turned her in his arms, his eyes dark with desire. "You were sleeping in that blue silk nightgown. And I thought, how can I want someone this much every single day? Maybe because you're insatiable," she teased, running her fingers through his hair. "Maybe because you're irresistible." He lifted her, sitting her on the kitchen counter, positioning himself between her legs. "And because I love you, and because every day with you is better than the one before." They made love right there, urgent and hot, the coffee cooling forgotten while they lost themselves in each other. Again, as always, as it would be forever. Their life settled into a happy routine. Lisa opened her own photography gallery, a dream that Luke supported financially and emotionally. Her exhibitions were successful, and she finally saw herself as the artist she'd always wanted to be. Luke continued running his empire, but now he left earlier because home, where Lisa waited for him, was more important than any business. They fought. Sometimes, of course, they fought, but it always ended in honest conversations, sincere apologies, and reconciliations that usually involved a lot of kissing and very little clothing. On cold nights, they lay intertwined on the couch watching old movies, eating popcorn, laughing at bad jokes. On Sunday mornings, they made love slowly, unhurried, savoring every touch, every sigh. And always, always he touched her as if he'd never touched her before, as if she were new, precious, unique. "Don't you ever get tired?" Lisa asked one night, laughing after another intense session of lovemaking. "Of you?" "Never." He kissed her forehead, then her nose, then her lips. "You're my favorite addiction, my healthy obsession, my reason to wake up every day." "Sappy," she teased, but her eyes shone with happiness. "Only for you," he smiled, pulling her closer. "Always only for you." A year after the wedding, Lisa discovered she was pregnant. Luke cried, really cried when she told him, and he spent the following 9 months treating her like precious porcelain, which both irritated and charmed her. When their daughter was born, a girl with brown eyes like her mother and dark hair like her father, Luke held her in his arms with such tenderness that Lisa fell in love with him all over again. "She's perfect," he whispered, amazed. "Like her mother." And there in that hospital room, looking at the man she loved, holding the fruit of their love, Lisa realized she had walked into the wrong house that stormy night. But she had found exactly where she was supposed to be. She had found love. She had found healing. She had found home. And all because one day under torrential rain, she knocked on the wrong door and found the right man. The desire between them never diminished. The affection never faded. The passion never cooled, because true love wasn't about perfection. It was about choosing every day to love the same person. It was about building brick by brick a life worth living. And they built it together forever. Sometimes, life's most beautiful mistakes happen when we least expect them. Lisa walked into the wrong house, but found the right love. Luke was waiting for someone, but received who he truly needed. They were two broken souls who found each other in chaos, and chose day after day to rebuild themselves together. Because true love isn't perfect. It's real. It's a choice. It's looking at someone and saying, "You, with all your scars, are everything I need." And maybe the real magic isn't in finding the right person, but in turning mistakes into victories, storms into new beginnings, and loneliness into a home. Lisa and Luke proved that sometimes fate needs a little push or a wrong address to put the right people on the same path. And you ever stopped to think that maybe your mistakes are also guiding you to where you've always been meant to be?